Your phone buzzes violently against your nightstand, vibrating with the harsh, unmistakable tone of an emergency broadcast. You squint at the glowing screen, expecting a standard weather alert, but the message is terrifyingly vague, urging immediate shelter in place. A push notification from a news app flashes underneath it. Hospitals in your city are suddenly overflowing with patients suffering from blackened skin and massive internal bleeding. What if the Black Plague started in 2026? You throw off the blankets and sprint to your living room window, pulling back the blinds to look at the street below. The eerie, terrifying silence of the early morning is already broken by the distant, overlapping wails of ambulance sirens echoing across the concrete grid. This is not a drill, and this is not a mild seasonal virus. The ancient, terrifying bacteria known as Yersinia pestis has miraculously re-emerged in a highly populated, highly connected modern metropolis. Your immediate, overwhelming danger is the sheer density of the city you live in. In the Middle Ages, the plague wiped out half of Europe by traveling slowly on wooden trade ships and horse-drawn carts. Today, a microscopic pathogen can board a commercial airliner and reach the opposite side of the planet in less than 12 hours. You must secure your apartment, hoard whatever clean water and medical supplies you currently have, and figure out a way to completely isolate yourself before the panic permanently collapses the fragile supply chains that keep this massive city functioning. You grab your laptop and furiously open social media, desperate to understand exactly how far the infection has already spread. The timeline is an absolute nightmare of unverified rumors, terrifying videos of people collapsing in crowded subway stations, and automated government warnings. You learn that this is not just the standard bubonic plague spread by infected flea bites. This is the pneumonic variant, a highly mutated, airborne killer that directly attacks the lungs and spreads efficiently through a simple cough or a sneeze. Your modern understanding of germ theory gives you a massive advantage over the terrified citizens of the past, but knowledge alone cannot shield you from a microscopic threat circulating in the central air system of your massive apartment building. You aggressively tape the vents in your apartment with heavy duct tape, sealing the edges of your front door to create a crude, desperate quarantine zone. You know perfectly well that modern antibiotics like streptomycin or doxycycline can easily cure the plague if administered within the first 24 hours of infection. But as you watch the live helicopter footage on the news, that modern medical advantage rapidly dissolves into pure horror. The hospitals are completely, hopelessly overrun. Desperate, terrified crowds are violently swarming the emergency room doors, overwhelming the exhausted medical staff, and effectively turning the healing centers into massive, hyper-infectious ground zero zones. Your first critical decision point hits you with paralyzing force. You only have a meager 3-day supply of food in your pantry and absolutely no prescription antibiotics. You can either risk a terrifying run to the local pharmacy right now, or you can barricade yourself inside and hope the military arrives to distribute emergency rations before you starve. You decide you cannot wait. You pull a heavy N95 mask tightly over your face, slide on clear plastic safety goggles, and step cautiously out into the eerily quiet hallway of your building. But the moment you reach the stairwell, a sudden, terrifying complication shatters your plan. The heavy fire door swings violently open, and your neighbor stumbles through, coughing up a fine mist of bloody sputum directly onto the sleeve of your jacket. Pure, unadulterated adrenaline floods your system like ice water as you violently shove the coughing man away and tear the contaminated jacket off your shoulders. You abandon the pharmacy run instantly, sprinting recklessly back down the hallway and locking your apartment door with shaking, terrified hands. You strip off your remaining clothes, scrub your skin raw in a scalding hot shower, and pray desperately that the heavy N95 mask successfully blocked the airborne bacteria. The terrifying reality of the modern era is that our hyper-connected society is both our greatest strength and our most fatal weakness. The internet provides you with instantaneous, life-saving information, but it also amplifies the societal panic to an apocalyptic level within minutes. By the time the sun fully rises on the second day of the outbreak, the fragile veneer of modern civilization begins to aggressively fracture right in front of your eyes. You stare through your window as the local grocery store across the street is violently looted by a desperate, terrified mob. People are fighting brutally over bottled water, canned goods, and basic pain medication. The supply chains have completely halted. Truck drivers are rightfully refusing to enter the infected metropolitan zones, meaning the grocery shelves will never be restocked. The power grid remains functioning for now, but the water pressure in your sink begins to drop ominously, signaling that the essential workers maintaining the city's infrastructure are either fleeing or dying. Then, the internet suddenly, terrifyingly, cuts out. The glowing Wi-Fi icon on your phone drops to 0, followed immediately by the cellular network losing all signal bars. You are instantly plunged into a digital dark age, completely isolated from the outside world without any warning. This is your second, devastating twist. You have no way of knowing if the government is organizing an evacuation, if the military is distributing antibiotics, or if the entire country has completely fallen. You are entirely alone in a high-rise concrete box, surrounded by millions of terrified, desperate people. The silence in your apartment becomes deafening, broken only by the horrific, wet coughing echoing faintly through the thin drywall from the neighboring units. The microscopic killer is systematically clearing the building, and your meager food supply is officially gone. You spend the next 48 hours sitting in the terrifying darkness of your living room, rationing your very last bottle of water and listening to the city slowly tear itself apart. You realize that modern humanity is incredibly arrogant, assuming that our advanced technology and sleek smartphones somehow make us completely immune to the ancient forces of nature. We built massive, towering cities that pack millions of human bodies into suffocatingly tight spaces, essentially creating the most perfect, efficient breeding ground for a bacterial pandemic ever conceived. Without the constant, uninterrupted flow of massive global logistics, our entire modern existence collapses into primitive desperation in less than a week. The heavy wooden door of your apartment is the only fragile barrier keeping you safe from the horrific, invisible slaughter happening out in the chaotic streets. But you cannot stay in this concrete tomb forever. Hunger begins to painfully twist your empty stomach, severely clouding your judgment and forcing you to make an impossible, deadly choice. The agonizing hunger finally breaks your resolve on the morning of the 5th day. You tightly secure your mask, wrap your hands in thick duct tape, and carefully unlock your front door, determined to scavenge the abandoned apartments on your floor for anything edible. The hallway is pitch black and smells powerfully of decaying organic matter and stagnant air. You slowly creep toward the open door of the neighbor who coughed on you days earlier, your heart hammering violently against your ribs. You step inside, sweeping your weak flashlight across the ransacked living room. Suddenly, a harsh, blinding beam of tactical light hits you directly in the face. A booming, mechanically amplified voice orders you to drop to the floor immediately. Heavily armored soldiers wearing fully sealed, pressurized hazmat suits step out from the shadows, their automatic rifles pointed squarely at your chest. The military has finally arrived to enforce a brutal, uncompromising quarantine. They forcefully drag you out into the hallway, scanning your eyes and taking a rapid blood sample right there on the dirty carpet. You wait in absolute, paralyzing terror for the digital reader to process your blood. The tiny machine beeps loudly, flashing a bright green light. You are completely clean. You have miraculously survived the deadliest initial wave of the modern plague. The soldiers aggressively escort you out of the contaminated building and onto the back of a heavy transport truck bound for a secure medical facility. As you drive through the eerily deserted, trash-filled streets of your ruined city, you look back at the towering skyscrapers standing like silent gravestones. You successfully survived the terrifying re-emergence of the Black Death, but the psychological scars of watching modern society collapse in mere days will never fully heal. This horrific nightmare proves that no matter how advanced our technology becomes, humanity is only ever a few short steps away from the Dark Ages. We are forever at the mercy of the microscopic world. If you survived this one, hit subscribe, because next week, it gets worse.